Today is day 90 of 100 random acts of kindness. This random act of kindness was not all that long ago, and so I wanted to share it, and it was pretty emotional, so I needed to give it some time. So we were waiting, Keith and I were waiting to hear if the clinical trial was working, and it ended up not working. So we knew that was quite a possibility. And so we were waiting by the phone, waiting for my oncologist to call. And I thought, you know what, I am going to tweet out about this. And I tweet about everything. And then just said, I am just devoting my life to making my husband happy because he is so amazing at making me happy. And so I tweeted something about that, devoting my life to making my husband happy. And then I said, Foo Fighters, and I tagged them and said, you're playing this week. I think it was a Tuesday. You're playing this week, and do you need an extra fan or something like that? Or do you want an extra fan there? My husband's, a big fan of yours. And so it got, a number of likes and people tweeting them on my behalf and that kind of stuff. And it just kind of, no big thing on Twitter happened. So I get a phone call, maybe the next day from my oldest brother. And he said, you guys are going to the Foo Fighters. And I kind of went, what? What? And it was never for me. It was for my husband. I love the Foo Fighters. I love Dave Grohl. And Taylor Hawkins. They're both drummers, and I'm a drummer's daughter, so I think that's where that comes from. But I love them, and I'd love to see them. But this was really about Keith. So I said, what are you talking about? And Christian told me how he got the tickets. I am not going to reveal that because this person wants no credit. But so this person secured tickets for us. And my brother had, I think, taken a screenshot of the tweet and put it on Facebook and said, if anybody has any contacts. And somebody within an hour called my brother and said, I've got her covered. I've got tickets for her. And this is somebody who I grew up with, but I haven't seen in a number of years. And we didn't go to the same school. We just, kind of different venues that we know each other. And he contacted my brother and said, this is happening, let her know, I'll send the tickets, everything. So Keith and I were crawling into bed, and I was like, you're not going to believe this. So he didn't know anything. He hadn't seen the original tweet, nothing. And I said, you're just so amazing that I kind of put this out there, not thinking necessarily that it would get any traction, and we're going. So kind of as a sidebar, I started looking into it a little bit more, and the venue, which is Blues Fest, Ottawa Blues Fest. I'm just going to close the door here. I'm at my mom's, and Keith and my mom are talking. Anyway, they weren't accessible, friendly at all, and they said they were, and I had called and said, well, I can't be the first person ever to have some accessibility needs, and they just really fluffed it off, and that was super disappointing. And Keith and I kind of went back and forth, the parking, there was no, he could drop me off, I think at 6:30, but then the roads closed, and then he couldn't pick me up until midnight, while the concert's 8 until, I don't know, 10:30 or something, so that didn't work. I have a walker, I've got a broken pelvis, all these things, and they just weren't willing to help at all. So I ended up not being able to go, but the whole focus was that Keith went anyway. So that's really what I cared about. My number one concern was Keith going, and of course we would have loved to go together, but he got to invite some buddies, and they all went, and he got home, and I had been watching on Twitter and just anybody uploading a 10-second video, and it just looked wicked. It looked absolutely wicked. And then Dave Grohl gets on the drums, and I would have loved to see it. I really would have. But Blues Fest just isn't handicapped friendly, and after I started looking into it, I wasn't the only one this year who was having issues. I wasn't the only one last year, the year before. And so they were getting a lot of tweets from people kind of protecting me, saying this is ridiculous that she can't go and see one of her favorite bands. And so they put a very, like, not direct, nobody, they didn't answer anything, but they were obviously reading all these. So they posted something on Twitter saying, we're accessible friendly, blah, 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 which they're not. I'm sure they are for somebody who, you know, has a broken foot, who can be wheeled in somewhere and maybe crutch somewhere. But somebody like me who has, I can't walk very far. It's in the middle of a field. It's kind of like a pop-up concert venue. And we run into that all the time. It's just, don't tell me that you're accessible friendly when you're not. Anyway, that's not the point of this. The point is that somebody that we know did this random act of kindness for us, because they are amazing. And again, they don't want the credit, so I'm not going to say who it is or how we got the tickets, but it's just such an amazing, I can't believe somebody did that. And now Keith gets to say that he saw one of his favorite bands and gets to cross it off the list, which is just incredible. And I've said that so many times, that the people going through cancer are not the only ones affected. My parents are affected, my siblings are affected, my best friends are affected, and my husband is affected. And so when somebody does something for me, I am endlessly grateful. But also when somebody does something for Keith, I am just as grateful, because I just think it's awesome that people remember that Keith is going through something a little different, but it's just as hard, if not harder. I can't imagine being the one watching what I go through. I'm glad it's me and nobody else. So that's today. If you're watching this, you know who you are. I want to just scream from the mountaintops, because it really means a lot to me, but I will respect you and I will not say who you are. Thank you so much. Talk to you guys tomorrow.